Welcome to this roundtable discussion today hosted by the National Volunteer Fire Council in collaboration with the North American Fire Training Directors. My name's Ken Willett. I'm the Executive Director for the North American Fire Training Directors, and I'll be serving as the discussion facilitator, moderator today. This discussion is to talk about how state and provincial fire training academies engage with the volunteer fire service. What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What can we do better? And one really important part of this dialogue is going to be you bringing your voice, your thoughts, your needs into the conversation. So we welcome that. If at any time you have a question you want to pose to the panel, we ask that you enter it through the chat function. And the moderator will send the question to me, and we'll bring it to the board, and we'll answer every one of them before we conclude. Again, this is about you and meeting your needs, answering your questions. So please take the opportunity to put your question into the chat, and then they'll be sent to me, and we can share them with the panel, and we can be sure that we answer that for you. I'd like to talk a little bit about the North American Fire Training Directors. We are a membership organization for those state and provincial level directors of fire training. Collectively, our agencies train over 1 million firefighters annually. And that is both volunteer as well as career, as well as on call, as well as fire police. Some academies do EMS and law enforcement. We're very engaged in training the entire fire service. We are in every state, and we are in half of the Canadian provinces. So we have a broad representation in membership. Working with the NVFC is a great collaboration for us because we see the strength of the volunteer fire service in terms of numbers. 60 some odd % of the American Fire Service is volunteer, and our most recent administrative survey showed us that our members were telling us that they had a similar percentage of students in their student population. So the volunteer fire service is engaged with the state training academies, and we're here today to talk about what we do, what we can do better, and what we can do to foster this relationship. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Jim Keegan from the Illinois Fire Service Institute, and he will do a short introduction, and then we'll allow the other members of the panel to introduce themselves and then get down to some dialogue. So Jim?
Hi, Ken. Thank you very much for the warm welcome, and thank you to the NVFC for hosting this program today. I think that it's a great opportunity for us to talk about training. And as a state training director in Illinois, I'm always excited to talk about training. And to give you a little bit of background on myself, I'm the director of the Illinois Fire Service Institute. IFSI is the State Fire Academy in Illinois, and we provided last year training to a little over 58,000 students in outreach. And of those, a little over 75% of those are either volunteer, combination, or paid on call. So it's the audience that makes up a majority of our students comes from the volunteer or the paid on call ranks. And it's really important that the state fire academies are available to support the volunteers if they're that large of an entity in your state, and they are in most states. It's important that we support those with the dollars that we have. And in Illinois, we have a number of programs that are specifically targeted at volunteers. And one of the premier programs that we have is we call the Cornerstone program. And we've got somewhere around 75 to 80 different courses that we're able to deliver at local volunteer fire departments at no cost. All they have to do is contact a regional rep, and we have 8 regions in Illinois, and we'll send a subject matter expert out to their volunteer department, to their combination department, their paid on call department, and deliver the training that they need to bring that outside expertise. But as part of that program, we also provide Instructor 1 and Instructor 2 is certification so that they can begin to train themselves or train their own people. And with the understanding that it's really tough to get volunteers now, and that there is a lot of transition in the volunteer ranks in a regular basis, we need to make sure that we make that training available, because having the best training in the world is of no value to a department if they can't access it. And to access it, you've got to go to the department. You can't wait for them to come to a state fire academy or even a regional fire academy. You have to come to them, especially in the smaller departments where they only have a small number of members. They can't send people away to get training if those are the members that always respond to calls. Another program that we implemented about 5 years ago was what Illinois calls the Basic Operations Firefighter Blended Program, which is Firefighter One in a blended format. And we literally took our in-resident academy that we delivered to career departments, and we broke it into a blended delivery model where over an 18-week time, we provide all of the online classroom or all the classroom training online, so those students can access it and get their lecture, instructor led, do their homework, get answers to their questions, and do various assignments related to that over the 18 weeks. And then every other weekend, we have regional practical sites that allow them to complete all of those skills to get that firefighter one, or in Illinois, they call it Basic Operations Firefighter Certification. That by the end of this next fiscal year, we will have trained over 1,000 volunteer firefighters that would have never had access to that. And then to better support that, we've also developed a series of firefighter training resources. One is a training guide that's available throughout the state that outlines what somebody that's going to work at the station needs to train on, or somebody that's going to drive the engine needs to train on, or somebody that's going to go in that may not be certified, what they need to train on, and then what the officer, incident commander needs to train on, and what the training officer needs to train on. And to support that, we've developed a series of online lesson packages that allow volunteer firefighters to download that whole packet and deliver that training in-house. And because of the availability of Firefighter One and Firefighter Two at no cost in a volunteer-centric model delivered on weekends, they're able to complete that training and sign off on that. So again, just to wrap up, it's really critical to make training accessible, because if they can't get it, you could be the best academy in the world and it doesn't meet their needs. And as a state fire academy, it's our job to meet the needs of the audience. Back to you, Ken.
Thank you, Jim. And Reed Vaughn, please.
Yes, sir. I think Jim and I are going to sound a lot like broken records, because a lot of the same talking points. But, first and foremost, just like Jim said, we got to go to where they are. That's been a big effort here with our academy in the state of Alabama. And kind of give background, I'm a lifelong volunteer and came here to the fire college around 12 years ago and have enjoyed, every day you get to come to work here is like a kid in a candy store. You don't have to drag me here kicking and screaming. So I'm pleased to be over the regional services section here at the fire college. And that's exactly what it's designed to be, is to reach into the regions, into the volunteer and the paid departments to make sure that their mission and their training is supported from here. So we have to go first to where they are. We've got to make our schedules flexible, make the classes into something that they can get access to. We need to ask them what they need. We undertook a survey here about 5 years ago and asked some questions of every firefighter in the state that considers himself a volunteer. A lot of those guys are two-hatters. They'll be paid here in this city and they'll volunteer in their hometown. And out of that information, we started to develop courses and offerings in our weekend programs, where we have higher level courses available here on our campus free of charge, and a Saturday, Sunday format twice a month, or through our regional training center, or through some other type of course delivery that's available to them. We've also kind of changed how we deliver the basic level certification. We're using hybrid delivery, much like what Illinois is doing. We're offering the 160 program, which culminates in Pro Board and IFSAC 1001 level 1. And we're offering that in 48-day pieces in four modules. And they have certain days that they have hands-on training. They have certain nights that they'll have coursework and testing to do at their individual departments. And then, of course, we support that at the local level by sending out someone from our regional staff to test and to verify that those things are being done. The other area where I think that we have significantly invested in the past really decade has been in our mobile prop fleet, that we can essentially bring almost anything a department needs directly to the door of their station. So we have 3 mobile burn props, mobile burn units that allow for structural firefighter training, search and rescue, below grade, above grade, whatever you want, whatever you can do with it to support your 1001 efforts or just your continuing education efforts, that is available. And the only cost to that to the department is propane. And in many cases, they get that donated, but the live fire instructor in charge is covered by us. We make sure we have staff members there that are responsible for that asset. We also have a hazmat prop that is designed to not only leak, but to burn and to cause all sorts of nastiness for you to deal with. One of the things that's common in some of our rural areas, and I see this across many states, is propane tanks. We actually have propane pop-off simulator and a propane fire unit that's deliverable to a station. We see our mobile drill tower and our confined space rescue prop getting, they're never still. They go somewhere, they sit for a week, and then they're gone again to another location. We actually have 2 tractors and drivers that roam the state moving these assets. And we just recently retired our driving simulator and replaced it with a AFG purchased unit, and we'll be placing that in service hopefully this spring. So our continued outreach efforts are to make sure that not only do we train on the basics, but that we give them the options to get those higher level classes. We offered swift water last year, surface water rescue, an entire RT series to volunteer rescue squads and volunteer fire departments. We train roughly 30,000 individual students in most years. And we've certified 9,000 plus volunteer firefighters in the state of Alabama that are still showing active on our rosters. So one of the things that you're going to see is you continue to move forward. Time is going to continue to become a much more difficult proposition for people to share, and we're going to have to continue to make this information available in every format we can to reach as many people as we possibly can. Last but not least, certification training is key to making our fire department safer, but it's not the only thing. So we're seeing a lot of questions about department management and fiduciary responsibility, and we're putting together an entire webinar series that'll take place January, February, and March that will involve state archives, State Department of Public Examiners. These are questions that we've been getting from the field, that they're getting from the field, the fire marshal's office and report management. And we're going to have each one of those entities presenting what a fire chief or a fire board or a local fire officer is responsible for in state code, what they're responsible for to maintain compliance with federal grants and other things, so that they understand that it's not just, oh, I didn't know that. Here is how you keep your people in compliance with those requirements that are out there, and make other things available to them. We're going to be doing that at night. The state employees are going to be coming online at 6 and staying on until 9 and taking questions directly from the field. Some of those webinars we've had in the past, like our electric vehicles and our hybrid webinars, we've had over 700 students in a single class. And it's impressive to see that level of involvement from our folks. So looking forward to answering questions and being available. And Ken, I'll toss it back over to you in the studio.
Thank you, Reed. And Reed, if you would put the web link for your agency in the chat. Somebody asked if they could see the web link so they could go and take a look at those mobile props. And I'll ask that of all the panelists. If you have a moment to put the web link for your organization in there, so as you're discussing and whatnot, and you refer to what you may have, our attendees will be able to go and follow up on that. So at this point, Lisa, welcome.
Thanks, Ken. So in Colorado, we are going to be very similar, albeit smaller than Illinois and Alabama, in that we have about 80% that are volunteer or combination departments, with about 60 of those, 60% being all volunteer or mostly volunteer agencies. And in Colorado, we're also a voluntary certification state, and I know many are. And so one of the things we had to really work hard at was getting the volunteers to come to trainings, come to the table, where we did not make them feel like they had to go for certification right off the bat. What's important to us is that they have the training and skills to do the job that they are doing. And we would love to get them certified. We think that's a great goal. But sometimes you just got to bring them there a little bit slowly and say, what do you need to do today for your job? We just want to be sure, and this is the goal of my team, is that not only do the volunteers have a long and successful career, but they have a long and successful retirement. And we think that comes from training. I came from a volunteer department, and I really learned pretty quickly how important the training officer was, the training program was for the volunteers with their limited time, and the resources of the departments. And that's what drove me to the state, because I really wanted to take that to the next level across the state than just at the one department that I was working at. When we talk to the volunteer departments about it, so every 2 years, we are required for a state grant program, our firefighter safety disease prevention grant, we're required to do a needs assessment. Our latest needs assessment was in 2022. And we asked, why don't you go for certifications if you don't do it? And time commitment and access to facilities and instructors were the two highest percentage of reasons why. So time commitment, a lot of what we've talked about with the hybrid academies, that's where we're trying to go. How is it we're going to be able to provide the Fire 1, the Fire 2, and the higher level classes when you have a full-time job, you have a family, or the time commitment that the volunteers have. So we've done our first hybrid academy where we did online on their own training, online classes, and then on the weekends meet up and do the skills. We're trying this year a statewide academy where then we would have multiple skill days throughout the state. So we can really just do as many students as we want in the hybrid area, and then figuring out how we do it. Our program has 6 trainers, 6 training officers. So they go around the state and really try to engage one-on-one with the departments. We found just emails, just posting flyers, that's not what's going to drive them to our programs. Colorado does not have a brick and mortar state fire academy. So we have 3 live fire trailers. We have 1 driving simulator, and 1, which has become our most popular, is a mobile pumping unit, draft commander. So really giving the volunteers a lot of hands-on time on how to do the water supply. That's one of our highest requested classes, is a rural water supply class every year. They really want to understand the dynamics of it. It's not just set it to 120 and go. We've had this great response to those classes. So with our trailer props and with our 6 RTOs, they're reaching about 3,000 students a year. These guys are on the road pretty much every week, but mostly working on weekends, mostly working on nights, trying to get to that. We also do, to try to maximize our resources, since we don't have a lot of trainers, we do weekend fire academies. So we have one that's become real successful. It's called the Fire on the Plains. So we do that in Northeast and Southeast Colorado every year. It's a 3-day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We get about 100 students. This is one that they pay for. They pay about $195 for the weekend, but they get access to about 25 different classes that they can take, from interior firefighter to SCBA confidence maze, to EMS skills, to some wildland classes. The state's cost for that, other than our time, is about $5,000 that we commit to that every year. And the rest of it is covered in the fees and some grant money that we get for that. And we're trying to expand that. We have the Colorado Firefighter Academy in Southwest Colorado in the fall, a very similar thing, although a little bit different in that they do a rookie track. So it's 4 days of really hands-on skills for the rookies. And we support that again around $5,000. And then we try to recoup the rest with a little bit. But the majority of the work we do is unpaid. So we go where the volunteers are, we give them our time, our expertise as best as we can. We try to talk to them about what it is they need, not what we think they need. What do you need? And we go and provide those classes. Right now, we are in the annual request process where all the fire departments in Colorado can say these are the classes we need or the types of trainings we need. We have about 31 classes they can choose from. But we will also do one-offs here and there of whatever it is that they need. So really it's about maximizing our resources because we don't have a lot. We're trying to build our cadre of instructors. We rely on a lot of volunteer instructors from throughout the fire service to help us support these programs, but really getting out to them and providing them what they need. And it's up to them to tell us where they need us to go. And then hopefully over time, we'll get them to the certification side. But that's not really our drive right now. It's just to get them the training. Ken, I'll turn it back to you.
All right, thanks, Lisa. And David Bullard. David, can you share some about yourself and some thoughts with us, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Ken. I am David Bullard. I'm from Columbia County, Georgia, on the west side of Augusta. I am MVFC State Director and also on the Executive Committee for National Volunteer Fire Council. A bunch of other things too. And as I look at the list of attendees here today, I have a lot of friends on there. And one of them I do adjunct for, so I guess he's kind of my boss. And he made a joke one time that I showed up on his HOA one day. I'm so involved in stuff. And I want to tell him his dues are paid today. He's good to go. In Georgia, I'm going to kind of do a little different here. We have a focused volunteer combination program. So these numbers don't really count into overall class deliveries from the Fire Academy, but this is a direct program that was designed to meet the needs of volunteer departments. It was implemented in 2017 and has done just shy of 1,120 class deliveries so far with 1,500 students served. And there's 16 class offerings in that. Plus, this isn't counting our Georgia Pipeline Emergency Response Initiative, which is also a deliverable in the field that's customizable to a department's response area. And that's 3 additional classes that are offered. So that's 19 classes that are pretty customizable to a department's need and schedule. And one of the things in developing this program was reducing the minimum student requirement that our state training center had on classes. Kind of waive that. We deliver it through adjuncts or deliver it through regional staff that have been hired and put around the state to coordinate these classes and better communicate with departments that can utilize the training. It's delivered in 3-hour blocks, so it's designed to be a plug and play to come in on a drill night. There are departments that may schedule 2 or 3 on a Saturday and do a full day of it. And if I roll back in history, 30, 40 years ago, one of the hallmarks of the Fire Academy in Georgia was almost every weekend they were out delivering training somewhere, and they did a bunch of regional fire schools, acquired structure burns, pressurized container burns, things like that. And since this program began, there's a rebirth of doing some blitz weekends, which is like the old regional fire schools we used to do, which is pretty neat to see coming back out. And this program has maze props. It has forcible entry props, car fire props, things like that are deliverable, in addition to our pressurized container training classes that are out there. In Georgia, if you come on as a volunteer, you have 18 months to meet the state certification requirements for that. The goal is to have you to support firefighter within 6 months. So we're, I guess, kind of ahead of what's coming out in 1010 with adding support firefighter. That we've had it for about 15 years in Georgia now. And these classes can be utilized by a training officer in conjunction with the classes they're running for support firefighter or for their basic training for volunteers, or they can bring it in just to supplement what they do on a normal drill night. If they're running out of topic ideas, they want a fresh instructor to come in, it's a prop they have available, it opens it up to them. And other than that, it kind of echoes what the first 3 have said, or I would echo what they've said, rather.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you all. And folks who are listening in today or watching, please use the chat function if you have questions you want to pose to the panel, and they'll be sent to me, and then I can ask them of the panel and get you the answers. So, and David, we do have a question. Did you talk about that firefighter support program. Did you say it was attic support or just is it a firefighter support? Would you just give a little more information on that, please?
Well, first of all, I've got to clarify. I miswrote my number down as 15,000 students. I thought that 1,500 was low when I was reading it, but it's 15,000 students since the program began. That number makes a whole lot more sense. So in Georgia, if you're on a volunteer department or you're in a volunteer role in a combination department, you can be trained to support firefighter. And it's a paring down of the 1001 or soon to be 1010 that is just related to non-interior firefighting skills. And that is a state level certification that can be obtained by somebody on the volunteer side.
Okay.
Actually, it's a requirement of volunteer now. That's the first test you take is support. And the design is, as my friend Tiger Smitnor says, the quicker you get somebody trained in delivering service, they're more apt to stay around. So it's designed to hurry up and get you available to do something on the fire ground and participate and be involved and be engaged in your department.
Okay. So, following up on, I heard from everybody that you are using delivery methods where you bring the training to the firefighter at the fire station or regional training center. And with that, you're also using props and whatnot. What have you done to invest in the technology for hybrid learning and using blended learning approaches as a means to reach out and to do training? Reed, anything happening in your neck of the woods on that?
Yes, sir. As noted earlier, COVID kind of drove us all into, we were doing some things in hybrid learning long before COVID. As far back as probably 2010, we did the first hybrid volunteer certification class. But COVID really threw us into high gear. So all of our classroom facilities here on campus are equipped to deliver classes from here to any location that has Zoom access. We actually have carts that came from a grant program through the United States Department of Agriculture that departments can check out and ask to use. They can be delivered to their department so that, and this is primarily on our EMS side, we see this. So we do teach EMT Basic, EMT Advanced, and Paramedic through our distance program with live instruction here from the campus. As class is happening here, it's happening there. In fact, I think it's our last advanced class and paramedic class, we actually had more students off campus at our remote sites than we actually had here on campus. So we're delivering classes through a hybrid format that are involving skills, local preceptors. We're leveraging our regional network that's already built out to deliver those classes to make sure they're supported and to give people the access without having to leave their department. I know that's been kind of a theme, but when you have 8 or 9 members in a department and you take 6 to send them to class, what are you doing to that community while those people are out? We've got to meet them where they're at. So learning management systems, being able to deploy those so they get access to the material they need, the discussion tools they need, all of these things that our partners in university education, and I know Jim being with IFSI really had access to a lot of those tools probably before many of the rest of us did because they are attached to the university there. But our ability to leverage those resources and to deliver them right to the doorstep of any volunteer fire department is growing. I know there are places in this state where access to digital information and distance learning is difficult because they don't have quality internet. But Starlink and some of the public grants that are out there now are drastically changing that. And we're seeing some of our regional university partners, West Alabama, from my neck of the woods, is reaching out to every town and fire department in their university coverage area. And they're offering to give them a Starlink set, pay for the service for a year through a grant, as long as the agency picks up that service thereafter. So that's going to change. And that's one of our hardest to reach areas. That's the most rural area of the state is West Alabama. 9,000, 8,000 people living in a county, mostly agrarian type of industry. So I think that's the biggest thing is you can't take your foot off the gas and you can't get complacent. Technology is changing. We've got to keep up with it, and we've got to make sure we can deliver the training in a format that A, gets the job done, and B, makes sure that they have the ability to work with their hands, because so much of what we do is not just sitting in front of death by PowerPoint.
And Lisa, you had mentioned that you've got a inventory of mobile trailers and props and whatnot, and that your most sought after program, the pump operations, is very successful. But Lisa, what's your observation about the effectiveness of hybrid and remote training as opposed to face-to-face at a fixed academy training? I know you don't have those resources, but what do you see from your student performance, your student satisfaction, and the response from the volunteers by using the mobile props as opposed to having a fixed facility?
One, we get a lot more coverage by being able to use the mobile props. We can take it to a department for a day or a week and give them a lot of opportunity, as well as get them checked off on their JPRs if they need to be, and check their critical skills. We've really just sort of started trying to do the hybrid academies. There was a sort of misperception on our part that some of the rural volunteer departments were interested in training, not so much interested in certification. What we realized is if we could figure out the model to bring the training to them, they were absolutely interested and desiring getting certified. So our first one we did with 22 students from 5 different fire departments throughout Western Colorado. 19 of them passed all their certifications in the hazmat and the firefighter one. First time through, all 22 have made it through by now. So it was a really successful initial attempt. And so we're trying one more in the mountain areas this year, and we're continuing to grow that program. But we found that the access to live fire training, that was really where we started. The access to being able to play with live fire was just not available in a lot of parts of Colorado. It was the annual bonfire, and they would put that out and say, okay, we did our training for the year, and realize that, you know, we as the state have a duty to support our volunteer firefighters who perform such a critical need across the state, that we really didn't want that to be their first opportunity to, of real fire being their first opportunity to play with fire. So that drove our program and really where we started. And then we heard about driving being an issue, and we heard about pumping and water supply being an issue. And so that's how we're growing it, is based on the needs that we hear from our constituents.
All right, thank you. And David, you talked about how you're working to get into, you have a wide library of training specific for the volunteer fire service. Can you talk a little bit about the thought that goes into designing that curriculum as you're trying to put together a program? How do you address what we've already heard from everybody, the time commitment and understanding the unique needs of the volunteer fire service as you develop these programs? Could you share some information on that?
So they're all based on JPRs from 1001 or things from that curriculum. And I give building example, or building construction for a great example here. The times I've delivered that in this program, I either go ahead to the town I'm doing it in, or maybe go on Google Earth and look at Street View, look at the buildings there. And if the weather's nice, we've done a walking tour of downtown and talked about their buildings, tied it back into the material, but made it specific to them. Time is the problem with everything we do in life now. The volunteer fire service, civic groups, family, whatever. There's so many things that burden our time. If the instructor shows up prepared and willing to make that class meet the understanding and the needs of the students, you get a better product. If the instructor shows up and they spend the first 30 minutes fumbling around trying to figure out how to get the computer to work, and they're not really prepared about the area they're in and have to learn the area, that kind of gives a bad taste. So some homework on the instructor end really makes a difference there. But every one of the programs is designed to where it goes in the area with the mobile props, of course, using their equipment. They can use their SCBAs, things like that. So it keeps them familiar with theirs. And I think there's some spin-off teaching lessons that also occur. If you're doing the car fire prop, there may be an impromptu PPE drill that goes with it, or whatever. It really allows a very fluid training environment.
All right. Jim, following up on what David just talked about, preparing the staff and ensuring that they're ready to deliver and meet the needs of the volunteer fire service when they deliver training. What are you doing in Illinois to address that? And how do you see the needs of the volunteer fire service being different, if you will, or unique? And how do you prepare your staff to address that?
Well, the volunteer fire service is unique, and it's neighbors helping neighbors. It's people with other occupations or careers, choosing a vocation of being a firefighter. And the way we address that is that we make sure that the instructors that are going to train the volunteers um, have some experience with that. And most of all of our instructors are part-time instructors. They have other jobs, other gigs somewhere else. Some of them are career firefighters, but many of them are those volunteer firefighters that have expertise, have passion, and have developed an understanding of the audience that they're dealing with. And then by having the state divided into regions, that regional rep for a given area is familiar with all the departments, familiar with all the chiefs, familiar with their equipment and their resources. So we make sure that the instructor is prepped before he ever gets there with who he's going to teach to, what they're going to have available, and if we need to bring additional resources, such as was discussed, mobile props or mobile equipment or an equipment trailer, to allow them to gain experience. It isn't the key to their training isn't just having an experience. It's doing it with the sets and reps to develop experience so they can adapt to the situations that they have. And I think David explained it really well, that an instructor that's going to teach building construction or LP or ground ladders, it makes no sense to go out and spend time in my presentation and in my discussion about using banger ladders if nobody has a banger ladder. If all they've got is a 14-foot roof ladder and a 24 or 28-foot ladder, that's what we're going to focus our training on. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about hydrant response if you're in a rural area and all you have is draft. I have to focus on what you're going to have. And then by having, as Lisa talked about, and Reed, a series of props and simulators that augment that experience, we can do that in any kind of weather, in any kind of condition, in any kind of environment, and we can put them through those sets and reps so they gain experience and truly understand what they're trying to do.
Now, we talked about meeting the needs of the volunteer fire service, so I'm going to ask the panelists to all respond to this. What is your main point of contact with the volunteer fire service in your jurisdiction? Or if you're a member of the volunteer fire service, what's your main point of contact back to your state academy? And what I'm hoping to hear is within every state, there's always membership organizations, fire service organizations representing a particular block of firefighters. Is there one in your state representing the volunteer fire service you maintain a dialogue with? How do you interact with them? Those types of things. Or if you're a volunteer firefighter, how do you get your voice heard at the state academy level? Is it through one of those organizations or through some other means? And Reed, I'll let you respond to that first.
Yes, sir. There's multiple ways that happens here. The Alabama Association of Volunteer Fire Departments does have an appointee to our 7-member commission, which is our governing body. And they can directly reach out to their commission person to voice their concern at the commission level. They can also pick up the phone. I think my cell phone number and lots of staff cell phone numbers are printed in every fire station in the state. So we do receive lots of calls and emails about specific items that they need help with. And that drives a lot of our course development. That drives a lot of the things that we try to do to add things outside of just certification training. For instance, the chief class is coming from that feedback that we're not only receiving from the volunteers, we're receiving from other state agencies that are getting questions from our volunteer chiefs as well. We also directly survey those individuals, but I think our biggest strength is we are divided into regions as well. We have 10 regions here in the state, and those regional coordinators are a mix of full-time and part-time people. They have staffs that work with them, regional proctor monitors and prop operators that know those fire chiefs, assistant chiefs, and firefighters by name, know their departments, their capabilities, their equipment, their training levels. And many times they're the ones that are calling here and saying, hey, look, I've got a department that's got this coming in a grant. Before they get it, we really want to put these classes on so that they're ready to use it when it gets here. Can we support that? Can we do that? So it's a collaborative effort. It's not a single item. It's a kind of a combination of all of that. And I think if it gets to the commission level and they have to take action there, then we failed way down the totem pole there, and we're not responding to the needs and the things that they're putting out there that we need to be responding to. So I really think our staff here does a great job. I'm a little prideful of our folks, and I think anybody that's representing an academy in this group is. We think we do a good job of that. And if we don't, we want to be called on it. We want to be told that we need to improve there. So I hope that answers that question.
It does. And David, how about in your experience? How are you making those contacts?
In Georgia, it's pretty easy to contact somebody at the State Fire Academy and have a conversation with them. With the addition of the regional directors, that only enhances that. Our Standards and Training Council is separate from the Fire Academy, so our compliance and certification is a different part. They have compliance officers around the state that have a dialogue with departments. It can be a conduit for information there. And our State Firefighter Association represents all firefighters in the state, career or volunteer. And we have an advisory role to the Fire Academy and our Standards and Training Council. So we have multiple paths to get information back and share things and seek out ideas.
Okay. And Lisa, what's happening in Colorado?
So we have the Colorado State Firefighters Association, which is our volunteer association. They have a seat on our fire training and certification advisory board, as well as on the Colorado Fire Commission, which is a commission that looks at all of our fire issues in Colorado and how we deal with them. In the last 2 years, they've had a subcommittee specifically about training and certifications and how we can do a better job reaching out across the state. We also have the Training Officers Association and direct contact with us. We may only be 11, but there's 6 regional training officers that are out there that are, trying to go door to door as much as they can, collect the data and give it to us. But actually, I will also turn it around a little bit and say, we understand there's a lot of turnover, regular turnover at volunteer departments. We don't always get the information. So we may have information for some volunteer departments that are out of date. So I would hope that as changes are made at the volunteer department, you reach out to the state and the training academies so that we can be sure we are reaching out to you when we have trainings coming up. We want you to know about it when we have grants coming up. So it's a two-way street. We're out there trying to do the best we can, but we also really rely on the departments to let us know when there's been a change.
All right. And Jim, what's Illinois' take on this?
So again, Illinois is a bigger state than a lot of places. We've got over 12 million people in the state, and in a big state, we've got a bunch of different associations and organizations. We have the Illinois Firefighters Association, the Illinois Fire Protection Districts, the Northern Illinois Fire Protection Districts, the chiefs, the instructors, the inspectors, the investigators, and that list continues. And we make a significant effort to spend time with all of those organizations. I'm a member of most all of those organizations. I go to their meetings, I go to their boards. My deputies do that. Our staff are part of those organizations. But those regional reps that we have, those 8 regional reps, are also out in each of those geographic areas attending the MABUS meetings or the mutual aid box alarm, and they're going to the county chiefs meeting, and they're going to any regional events that's going on to be the face and to be somebody that all of the firefighters know is tied back to IFSI. Oh yeah, I know him. He works for IFSI. And having those relationships in advance are the way we get those communications. And all of our classes, I didn't sit here and come up with those. The firefighters are the instructors, and I see Reed nodding his head. He knows where I'm going already. The instructors not only came up with those, but the students said, I wish we had this. And if it's the right thing for the fire service and there's a way I can make it happen, I'm going to make it happen. Whether it's a new EV vehicle class or a drone class or a an intense search and rescue class for structures or a search and rescue class for a rural area. If the fire service in Illinois wants it, they have various means to communicate that back to us. And as the director, it's my job to find a way to make that happen because by statute, my job is to train firefighters. Doesn't matter where you come from, what you are, it's to train firefighters. So I want to make sure that I'm always working to meet uh, that expectation and that requirement.
And Jim, that's I want to touch that point just a little bit. The NAFTE members, the state and provincial level directors of fire training, what differentiates them from a training officer is they typically have a statutory or a regulatory or an executive order setting them up as an authority having jurisdiction, using NFPA terms, over a geopolitical area, a state or a province, and a responsibility to train firefighters. And as Jim said, it's a state-driven mandate. This is what we have to do. This is not optional for us. It's our core mission. So that's one of the differences between the NAFTE members and other training organizations is our folks carry that additional responsibility of being an authority having jurisdiction. What does that mean? It means they can identify curriculum, they can set standards, they can go out and do deliveries, they can get funding, they can do a whole bunch of things, but they cover the entire state and not just a department.
And another point on that I think is really important. We've talked a lot about training, and we've touched on certification, but certification, whether it's Pro Board or IFSAC, frequently is a statutory obligation of the State Fire Academy in some way, shape, or form. If you've seen one State Fire Academy, you've seen one State Fire Academy. Everybody has different mandating legislation, but what it ultimately means is that we are responsible to assure that our students are achieving a certain standard or quality of training that hopefully provides a reciprocity across the state. Now, if our students go through a certification class, let's just say a Pro Board class, and then they go to Alabama, there may be some obligation that they have, but Reed's going to know that if they got a cert from IFSI, that they've had a curriculum. First off, they had a real curriculum, and that curriculum followed the NFPA standards for that curriculum, and they had a certain level or quality of education and skill knowledge validation. And that's another unique aspect of state academies. That's their job. There are tons of people out there doing training, but not all of them are doing training to standards. They may be philosophical in what they're training, but all of the state academies have a component of certification.
Yeah, they're connected through accreditation by one of the two certification bodies, which is on a periodic basis, they get surveyed basically.
Yeah,
where they have to document.
Yeah,
they have to document their compliance in alliance with the NFPA standards, how they're addressing it and whatnot. Let's see, we got about 10 minutes, but I'd like to pitch a question to the panel. Right now, the fire service is facing a challenge of recruitment and retention, and that's universal across the fire service. But we have heard anecdotally, the volunteer fire service is experiencing that and actually seeing their numbers decrease for a number of reasons. And sometimes we hear that training may be a component of why folks feel they can't make the time obligation to be a volunteer. We know our U.S. Fire Administrator, Dr. Lori, has made recruitment and retention one of her high-level goals of her summit, as a work group stood up that both the NVFC and NAFTE are working on to contribute and to find ways that we can help support Dr. Lori, but use our resources. So my question to the panel is, how can we leverage our state training academies and our volunteer fire service collaboratively to address the recruitment and retention issue, and also to address what challenge does training place in that equation of trying to maintain recruitment and retention. And let's see, Lisa, I'll ask you to go first.
Well, that's a pretty big question to ask. But I think one of the biggest problems that we're finding is that the sort of scope of practice of a firefighter continues to grow. So the level of training and you need to know the basic fire and the vehicle extrication. And now you've got the electric vehicles and all of that. So the breadth of training just continues to grow that you need to do. We're definitely seeing a decline in our volunteer fire service in Colorado. There's areas where, it's a lot of mutual aid. It's a lot of neighboring departments coming together to cover the needs of everyone. And training is seen as sort of an impediment to that because of the time. So in my department where I came from, it was like, we can't ask too much of the volunteers or they'll go away. And I switch that around, that I think when you drive it through training and you give them the skills that they need to do the job well and to feel confident in what they're doing, that I actually think you increase their longevity in the fire service.
Mhm.
That it shouldn't be looked at as a burden. The training is there to make them successful. So it's really how we talk about it. One of our issues is when they say, hazmat, that's the worst test ever. You may never pass this. I'm trying to convince all of the people out in there and all the training officers, don't set them up for failure like that. Say, hazmat's kind of fun. You got to do it. It's
Mhm.
interesting stuff. And we have to change how we talk about it so that training becomes more of a bonus and not an impediment to the volunteer fire service.
All right. And David, what's your take?
First of all, Lisa, hazmat is very fun. So I'm 100% with Lisa. If the curriculum is engaging, if the instructor's engaging, they're prepared, they have a good product they're delivering, that drives people to stick around. When a department is struggling to deliver good training, when there's a roadblock to good training being delivered, things like that, people leave. If they have to wait too long to become certified to be able to be engaged on calls, they leave. Something else will occupy their time. So the quicker you can get curriculum in their hands, the quicker you can get them to a certification level and doing things, and the training is pertinent, it makes sense, and they have some fun doing it, you're going to reap the benefits from that.
Okay, Reed.
Had to find the mute button. I like the way that Lisa put that. I think that the fire service, sometimes we struggle from, this stuff will kill you. Well, don't you want to be a part of it? Sometimes we're our own worst advertisement, but making sure that training is available and relevant and meets their time schedule. We found people willing to drive from the far reaches of our state to come here to take particular classes. Being able to make things available that they need has been critical. I think that the other thing that's out there is leveraging that grant world. We're trying to encourage counties, county associations specifically, to approach the safer grant application so that they achieve NFPA 1582 physicals. My county is one of the top 10 poorest counties in the country where I'm from. You look up Sumter County. If you go to Wikipedia and look up poorest counties in the United States, you'll see Sumter County is number 9 on the list for per capita income being the lowest. And we had problems with recruitment and retention and keeping people because a lot of our people are working 2 jobs. A lot of our people are single parents. A lot of our people are struggling. And we begin to pay for training. We begin to pay for showing up at calls. We had departments that couldn't take people even though they needed them because they couldn't afford to outfit them. So assisting agencies in finding those pots of grant funding to help grow their departments and to help grow their training capabilities is a critical mission of state academies. A lot of people want to come into your state. A lot of people want to bring training into your state and offer things. A lot of partner organizations in the state want to come deliver things to help with recruitment and retention. And I don't want to sound conceited when I say this, but if I come into Illinois and I want to teach a class on how to get a grant, if I don't have IFSI backing, if I don't come to the departments with that backing behind me, in other words, they're repping for me, they're saying, hey, we know this guy, he's reputable, I'm probably not getting past the door in most agencies. And I think that's the key, is they know there's a trusted relationship with that academy, and we need to guard and protect that trusted relationship to help them with a critical problem. One of the things we found in that survey, 8 out of 10 people that answered that survey said recruitment and retention was their number one problem facing their department and keeping the doors open. And we've got to address that. We've got to provide that answer. That's part of our mission and vision statement here. And sometimes that requires outside the box thinking. Sometimes that requires leveraging federal grant resources or helping them get to that federal grant trough and being able to do that.
All right. And Jim, you have 2 minutes to share the Illinois experience.
What they said.
Okay.
You know, and everybody is spot on. Recruitment and retention is a challenge. It is the training demands can be difficult, but if as a state fire academy or a training entity, you focus on being student centered, not how we always did it, but how do the students learn now? How could, you know, we have students that they need to be able to access classes, not when the instructor is available, but when they're available. Whether they're out in a combine, listening to a lecture, or watching a YouTube video of skills, or listening to an audio podcast of wind-driven fires, or fuel-related, vent-related issues in dealing with fires. They need to be able to access it when they want. So leveraging technology, not focusing on technology, but leveraging technology to improve access is I think a key aspect. And the last thing I'm going to say is that if you look at those departments that have well-developed, well-organized training programs that prepare people for their job, people stay. A lot of places will say, I can't ask, like Lisa said, I can't ask them to do this. But the fact of the matter is they don't want to be there and risk their life needlessly. They want to mitigate that risk, and they know that they can do that through training, and good leadership and good training are why people want to belong to an organization.
All right. Well, thank you. I want to thank the panel, and I want to thank the folks for sending us questions through the chat. And Michael also remarked that it was good to hear the discussion about the recruitment and retention challenges in other states, because I think he's from Nebraska, and he's having, Nebraska is certainly having a hard time. And Jim just posted, a lot of the volunteers here have a hard time to afford the materials. So I think I heard some talk about grants. I think I heard some talk about trying to reduce the impact. So that's another thing that I did hear some of the state academies are doing. And if you're in a state that's not currently being done, I encourage you to find a way to connect with that state academy and to let them know what your needs are, and to see if there isn't an opportunity to collaborate on a grant or some other kind of initiative to defray that impact on the volunteer fire service. So with that, I want to thank everybody, and I want to thank NVFC and our producer Maggie for making this all happen today. NAFTE and NVFC are both resources here to help you. You can find us on the web. You can find contact numbers for both organizations. So consider us in your toolbox. And thanks for joining in today. Stay safe, and don't forget to train. Take care.